Plants vs. Zombies 3 recently got a new update with some genuinely good changes. I was originally going to make a full video covering the entire update, but I realized a 10-minute video wouldn't really give me enough time to explain why I still feel negatively about some of the game's core mechanics. And surprisingly, PopCap has actually shown a lot more interest in fan feedback recently, including some of my own opinions, which is shocking. This entire update was very clearly designed to make people happy and did a pretty decent job. So this video exists to convince PopCap that PvZ 3 could work perfectly fine without leveling. I'm going to explain why leveling hurts PvZ's game design, why the community hates it so much, the benefits PvZ 3 would get from removing it entirely, and some more natural ways monetization could work instead. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe or else you'll be removed. Plants vs. Zombies 2 originally did not have leveling. The game was designed around plants and zombies having consistent stats. Everything was balanced around how much health enemies had, how much damage plants dealt, and exactly how useful certain plants were. It was very PvZ 1 core. You unlocked a plant and it simply did what it was designed to do. Then in 2017, PvZ 2 got the leveling update, which permanently changed the game. Using seed packets, you could permanently buff plants to become stronger. Why is this bad? Well, a pea shooter can theoretically break the entire game's balance. If you level up a pea shooter enough, you eventually make other plants obsolete. Repeater is supposed to be 2 pea shooters in 1, but once your normal pea shooter starts out-damaging it for a fraction of the price, oops, Repeater is gone. The sad thing is, PopCap actually promoted this as a positive. In the leveling tutorial, the game literally gives you a max level pea shooter alongside a level 1 repeater for comparison. Unsurprisingly, the repeater gets completely steamrolled.
I'm gonna dig up the repeater, we've seen the comparison. Now let's put in the best of them.
Not only does this make other plants obsolete, but it also makes the game less strategic as you can brute force every challenge. Take King Zombie for example. Outside of his funny design, he's actually a really clever enemy mechanically. King Zombie knights nearby peasant zombies, turning them into night zombies. Since knight helmets are some of the strongest armor in the game, the king suddenly becomes a massive threat despite barely moving. This creates a unique scenario where certain plants struggle, others thrive, and the player has multiple ways to approach the problem. Cheap attackers like Pea Shooter obviously won't do very well against knights, but heavier plants like Citron or Coconut Cannon can blast through their armor and create openings. And importantly, the game doesn't force you into some strict locked-and-key solution where you must use specific plants. Instant use plants like Cherry Bomb also work great here. You can blow up the knights or completely ignore them and nuke the king directly. It isn't a permanent solution since Cherry Bomb has a long cooldown and costs a lot of sun, but it works. There's also Plant Food, which allows weaker plants to temporarily stand their ground. They aren't useless, just outmatched. This is what I would consider good game design. There are multiple solutions to a problem and they feel satisfying depending on the player's strategy. But leveling completely destroys this. A max level pea shooter can casually shred through night zombies and kill the king in seconds. What's the point of interacting with the level properly if you can just brute force the puzzle? And that's only pea shooter, a tutorial plant. Imagine if this was something already overpowered like a mega gatling pea. Leveling actively discourages players from experimenting with new plants or strategies. Why would I use the brand new level 1 plant I just unlocked when my overleveled starter plants were 10 times better? And this isn't even mentioning the predatory grind attached to it. Spend tons of coins and seed packets to strengthen plants, then gamble on whether or not you even get the seed packets you won. The game encourages players to participate in a mechanic that simultaneously hurts the gameplay and the player experience. Penny's Pursuit was basically a band-aid fix for this problem, trying to create harder levels that couldn't be instantly steamrolled, but even that is flawed. Some levels become flat out impossible because of zombie leveling. If zombies are too overleveled, you simply cannot outskill them. Either you pay to upgrade your plants or you lose.
If I plant food this, please tell me that's at least a dead seagull.
This is one of the biggest reasons people prefer older versions of PvZ 2 or mods. You avoid this entire mess. So, did PvZ 3 learn from any of this? No. The game fell into almost every mistake PvZ 2 already made. Leveling basic starter plants became the meta again. Why bother using tier 2 or tier 3 plants when it's much easier to overlevel your cheap starter squad? Yet again, level design got destroyed by overpowered plants. My newly unlocked Solar Pea was completely useless because my level 20 pea shooter outclassed it in every way. The game fell right back into the grind of farming materials just to level up plants instead of focusing on what should actually matter, unlocking new ones. However, PvZ 3's newest update completely overhauled the leveling system. The max level cap got reduced from 20 to 10, and levels are now far less impactful overall. Tier 2 and Tier 3 plants also received a major buff so they could properly compete with Tier 1 plants. In general, the gameplay feels much smoother now. That's because leveling barely matters anymore, which makes me ask, why is it still here? A level 1 tier 3 plant can already casually handle level 5 zombies. Leveling was toned down so much that it barely even exists anymore. By removing it entirely, you'd make a huge portion of the fanbase happy while also giving the developers complete freedom to balance plants and zombies around consistent stats again. You create far more memorable matchups when plants and zombies fight at intended strength, not because one-sided has inflated numbers from grinding. But if leveling gets removed, then PvZ3 still needs a new way to make money. Currently, the currencies used for leveling are one of the main reasons people buy gems in the premium plant pass. So, how do you monetize the game in a way that players actually want to engage with without ruining the gameplay? Well, I brainstormed something. One of my favorite things in PvZ3 is the special abilities you can unlock. I think they could be more creative, but finding new ways to use existing plants is genuinely fun. So what if we took inspiration from the Chinese version of PvZ2? In that version, certain costumes give plants completely different abilities. For example, Cactus normally gets stronger with plant food, but one costume changes it so she fires a massive burst of spikes across the lawn instead. So what if PvZ3 handled costumes differently? Costumes themselves would stay cosmetic. Players can buy whichever ones they think look cool, and by default, they don't do anything. But once leveling is removed, suddenly coins and shards don't really have a purpose anymore. So what if you could spend those resources to enchant a costume with a special ability tied to that plant? Just think about how much creativity this could add. For tier 1 plants, maybe Sunflower gets Sunstrikes, where every minute a giant beam of sunlight strikes down, damaging zombies while generating bonus sun. Walnut could have Last Strike, where he rolls down the lane like Walnut bowling once he's about to die. And for tier 2 plants, the possibilities could get more wacky. Coldslaw every 10 lobs would create a tile full of snow that chills zombies walking through it. Peanut could slowly regenerate lost heads. Tallnut could collapse forward onto zombies and stun them after defeat. This system alone can massively deepen the strategy behind what plants you unlock, bring, and abilities you select. The main motivation becomes collecting plants and experimenting with abilities instead of endlessly grinding levels. You could constantly add new costumes, place them in the plant pass, sell limited time variants, or even allow communities to trade costumes they don't want. What if the free pass gave you a normal costume for a tier 3 plant, while the premium pass included an exclusive variant? That creates exclusivity and collector appeal without directly selling game-breaking power. By adding an ability costume system, you aren't selling shortcuts to skip progression anymore, but keeping all plants viable, massively increasing replayability, and giving players an actual reason to keep returning. It's a win-win for both the player and the developers. But that's just my idea. Let me know if you agree with my take on removing leveling, and if you don't, how you would handle it instead. Thanks for watching.